Hey guys, my name is Ricky. I'm a flight instructor, commercial pilot, entrepreneur, and your host of the Positive Rate Aviation podcast. Welcome to season 2. This season, we're going to continue our climb into the art of leadership, growth, and success through the lens of aviation. We're going beyond the basics. We're going to be exploring new horizons in personal development, mindset, and the strategies that help performers stay above the turbulence. From cockpit wisdom to real-world leadership lessons, each episode is designed to help you level up, lead with purpose, and keep your life and career in a positive rate of climb. So buckle up. It's time to set your heading, add some power, continue your ascent towards your full potential. Right, aviators, we are back. This is a special one. You guys are in for a treat today. I've been working this one for a little bit of time behind the scenes, but we're in for a treat, like I said, and we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit away from the standard Positive Rate Aviation podcast guests. But today, without further ado, I'm joined by Juan Gama. Juan, how you doing, bro?
Doing good. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Happy to have you on, man. I'm honored and appreciate you taking some time to sit down and chat with me today.
For sure, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, this is a little bit of a shift from the typical positive rate guest. So, I was actually thinking about this a little earlier. Besides, I had one guest on that was an air traffic controller. But with the exception of that, you were my first non-pilot on Positive Rate Aviation. So, excited to kind of get a different perspective, still within the aviation community, but just different perspective. I think it's going to be great. But if you wouldn't mind, Juan, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, man, where you're from, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, or maybe they don't follow you, just about where you're from and a little bit about, your company.
Yeah, so I am originally Colombian. I was born in Colombia, and then we moved to the States when I was 8 years old. And I went to school for architecture, and I actually was in that field originally. And then when I decided I kind of wanted to escape the 9-to-5 life, I decided I wanted to start my own thing. So I started my own business in the fitness realm. And we specifically specialize in pilots. So all my clients are pilots specifically. Hence, why we're on an aviation podcast right now. And that's why you had me on, I assume. But so we help pilots get in the best shape of their life. I've been coaching pilots for 5 years now. And I would say that's what's kind of like become my purpose. And I'm living in Miami now. So I'm in Florida, but I lived in North Carolina for a good while, and just decided I wanted to be around more like business people, more entrepreneur type. And I also just love the tropical weather. So I decided to come out to Miami. But that's my company. I'm the CEO of Fit for Flight Coaching.
Fit for Flight Coaching. Yeah, you guys, we'll kind of for sure plug those online handles and websites and all that there at the end. So you kind of answered one of my other questions, but one thing I did want to say, I did want to ask rather, is were you pretty heavy into fitness beforehand? Anyway, I know you said you wanted to get more into the entrepreneurial and dealing with, business clientele, but has fitness always been a passion of yours?
Yeah, so I started breakdancing when I was in 6th grade, and that's kind of what sparked my interest in like the actual physical body of like, getting the most out of it. And so that led to me, doing some lifting, doing some yoga, and just finding ways to elevate that craft. That's something that I still do to this day, and it is still, a big passion of mine. And so that's kind of like where my fitness side came from. But then also my aunt owns a weight loss clinic, and I worked for her throughout high school and college. And so that's where the fitness idea came from, of like, okay, I know how to help people lose weight, know how to help people build muscle, get stronger. I can certainly help people with that. So when I was on the path to, again, building my own business, that's why I decided to go down the fitness realm.
That's awesome. So able to combine, kind of those two passions, right?
For sure.
So I know you said, you were looking to kind of change your clientele and more entrepreneurial, business-minded people, but Why aviation specifically?
So when I started my business, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew in the back of my mind I probably needed help because I'd never built a business before. And I was actually following a coach who helped other coaches build businesses. But something was holding me back, whether it was my ego wanting to be self-made, whatever it was, something was actually holding me back from actually asking for help. So I thought, well, I can do this on my own. So what I did is I went on Google and I was like, okay, how to start a business. And then, I always say this to people also kind of like trying to figure fitness out on their own. You can go on Google and you can look up how to get in shape, how to lose weight. There's so much information out there, but there's too much information. When there's too much information, you don't know what specifically is going to work for you. And you don't even know half the time if you're even doing the right things because you don't have an expert. You don't have somebody there guiding you and actually showing you mistakes that you might be making or showing. And so what ends up happening is while these programs are great, they might get you some quick results. It could lead to you not necessarily maybe getting the results that you want. And then people get discouraged and they think they're doing something wrong. When in reality, it might not even be that you're doing things wrong. It just might be that there's no structure in place. There's no accountability in place. And there's no way to know when to make adjustments, when to shift directions, etc. So what ended up happening is I would go on Google and I was like, okay, maybe I can try SEO. Maybe I can try this. Maybe I can try digital marketing, whatever. And I tried all these different things. And I got to a point like 6 months into that where I realized I had all these different projects that I was working on. And I realized, man, I've been putting in all this effort and I have nothing to show for it. And so let me put my ego aside. Let me hire a coach. Let me see where I can take this. So hired a coach. Obviously, I was skeptical, especially with a business coach. You don't know what you're going to get. But me and my coach, we sat down. We were like, okay, Juan, well, what can you help people with? And then this is where I was like, okay, I can probably help people with fitness because I know what I'm doing in that realm. And then why or who are we going to help? I was in an office. I was around people complaining about their backs, complaining about sitting all day. So I thought I could probably help office workers. And that was really my original idea. Then me and my coach, we did research and we just really randomly came across pilots and we realized nobody's helping pilots. Nobody's actually providing this service for pilots. There's some fit pilots with their meal prep hacks and their workout videos. There's no actual coaches. There's one guy who we talked about on a brief call when we talked, Ricky, but Fernando with Fit Aviators Club, which is great. Friend of mine, we've talked. But he's also a full-time pilot. He's not necessarily like building this company that's like, okay, we're going to help all the pilots get in shape. He's just, coaching pilots, here and there. Whereas that's what the vision of my company became, is to serve pilots on the highest level and really raise the health standard in the aviation industry. Mind you, I actually started this business when COVID hit. And so that's where I started to question if pilots were even the right people to work with, because everybody was just in such an uncertain period. People were getting laid off here and there. But I stuck with it for long enough and I changed enough pilots' lives where I realized these are the people I want to help, because it became a lot more fulfilling. It became, a lot less about, okay, finding my freedom and making money for myself, which I was able to accomplish that. But when it started to come from a place of like giving as much value as possible and actually changing lives, and then people come to me and they're like, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. You changed my life. Then it becomes a lot deeper than it, and then it becomes bigger than me. Right. And that's that's what we're on track for right now.
Wow. Yeah, man. And yeah, you dropped a lot of gems there, man. But my big takeaway from everything you just said is you living in your purpose. And that's truly, I think, where a lot of that fulfillment comes from. And, any sort of monetary success or notoriety is kind of just a byproduct of that, which is awesome. Right. But, I think it's often overlooked, man, how, very few people are fortunate enough to not only find their purpose, but live and operate in that, man. Man, that's awesome to hear that you were able to do that. A question that I didn't even have pre-prepared, but I just thought about this as you were talking. So all of your clients are pilots, but are you dealing with pilots at all levels? I know, we mentioned Fernando, shout out to him, airline pilot. But are you dealing with like brand new, like student pilots, guys that kind of just not going through the pipeline? And I guess my question more so is, if you are dealing with those students, is the program tailored to kind of fit that lifestyle a little bit more? What do some of those differences look like?
Yeah, for sure. I've worked with students, I've worked with CFIs, airline, corporate, cargo, every type of pilot really that you can probably think of. And then even some guys that don't fly. We've had a couple mechanics, we had some air traffic controllers, we had a couple different guys. And then I had like some friends that, that weren't even in the aviation industry. So we've worked with we just definitely target pilots. That's where our marketing is targeted specifically for. When it comes to actually a specific program, that's definitely one of the things that we do pride ourselves in is we're not just giving you the same program that we're giving every client. We're truly like sitting down with you and building the system out for your lifestyle. And so if you don't even have a gym available, then okay, let's build a training plan based on body weight or based on some free weights that you might have laying around at home. And that's one of the things that we do for our clients is we don't just give you again, like some cookie cutter program. We're going to build something out for you. And then on top of that, there's obviously things that are incorporated into that. So we'll give you, again, meal plan, eat out guide, all the tools to help you navigate that. And, hotel gym workouts so that whenever you're stuck in a crappy hotel gym, you have the options available. When it comes to students, I would say the benefit of that is that you're home every night, so you're not having to spend, sleep in different beds and, change time zones all the time. And so same with CFIs, when you're home every day, it can be a little bit more helpful. Again, obviously everybody has their own challenges. Everybody has their own schedule that they kind of have to deal with. But yeah, it's a very personalized experience.
And it's crazy. Again, not to be redundant, but you just said something else that I hadn't even considered. We all, and you being what you do for a living, obviously at a greater depth, but we all hear about sleep and the part that sleep plays in recovery and how we, recharge and how important that is to our health and our fitness. But I wasn't even thinking about the fact that these airline pilots specifically are in a different bed every night and how much that literally just dawned on me when you said that. Like, wow, that is interesting in itself. You could eat right and be hydrated, but if you're in a bed that you're stuck somewhere for 1 or 2 days and the bed's terrible, then now your performance is going to be significantly affected.
Oh yeah, no, it's a massive challenge. Changing time zones and then just sleep is so important because that's when your body recovers. That's when your body kind of like resets. And then also another thing that I think people don't take into consideration is as a pilot, you're forced to sit all day. And so because you're forced to sit at work all day, a lot of the tendencies that pilots have is that they get home and what do they want to do? Relax. They want to sit some more. And so they get in this loop of sitting at work all day, getting home, sitting some more, watching TV, whatever, going to sleep, and then doing it all over again. And I always say that our levels of energy are directly correlated to our levels of activity. And so if you're always sitting, if you're sitting all the time, your whole life, what do you think you're training your body? Right? You're just like you can train your body to be fit and be in the gym and be in shape and feel good and have high energy. You can also train it to do the opposite. And so if you don't work out and you don't take care of your body and your reasoning behind that is because, well, I'm tired all the time. I'm fatigued all the time. That could very much well be the reason why you feel like that is because you're not doing anything, because you're not moving your body. And when you move your body, when you exercise, when your body actually is active and burns more calories and, you actually rest better. You actually get better sleep because your body needs it more as opposed to when you're just always in this fog of just TV, scroll time, sitting down, not moving very much, gaining weight, and then your body's carrying extra weight, and then your joints hurt, and then your back hurts, and then everything just kind of starts to deteriorate over time. And then, you get to a point where you have to retire in a wheelchair, you lose your medical, worst case scenario, obviously, but that's the reality of what you're putting yourself up for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just compound. Like it's just a snowball effect, if you will, right?
Yeah, and it can go either direction. You could compound it in the positive direction where you become your best self, you feel your best, you feel confident, and then also people feel that off you. When you're living your best life, not just like obviously it's a very hard journey to become a pilot. Like you don't want to just take that for granted, get your medical taken away and then,
Yeah.
So but when you physically, mentally, spiritually, and in every way you're being your best, people feel that off you.
Absolutely.
It's not just like you feel it; you put it out into the world.
Oh, it's infectious for sure, man. And as we know too, the older we get, it obviously doesn't get any easier, right?
100%.
Yeah,
that's why you got to keep up with it.
Yeah, you talk about losing that medical. I had to renew my medical back in June, and just sitting and speaking with the AME, and he's like, "All right, so how old are you now?" And so he's like, looking at everything. He's like, "Hey, man, you're getting up to mid-30s, right?" So he's like, "You're going to need an EKG soon, and it's becoming that much more important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself." And we all kind of know it, and it's in the back of our mind. But hearing someone who's a medical professional, especially within aviation, kind of really look you in your face, like, "Hey, man, make sure you keeping yourself together because this is your everything, right? You've worked so hard to this point." And I think obviously it just applies the same like someone that does what you do. You can provide that kind of that direct communication to say, "Hey, this is extremely important."
100%.
So obviously we know that pilots are, more often than not, have a sedentary, if you will, do a lot of time sitting, like you said. But what are some common like physical challenges in your experience that you've seen that pilots face?
Well, the sedentary obviously is a big one. And the reason that also becomes a big challenge is because when you sit all day and then you don't really move your body or you don't work out your muscles, what ends up happening is that your muscles, in a way atrophy. And so if you're sitting all the time, what's going to happen is your core is going to weaken. Your stability is going to be reduced. And so when your core weakens, when you don't have that stability, when you're tight all the time, and on top of that, you gain weight. So you have like 30, 20 extra pounds that you're carrying on you. That's where all that back pain comes from because your back is also part of your core. So that's why pilots experience a lot of back pain is because they got extra weight that they're carrying. They're sitting all the time. They're not moving enough. Obviously, that's one of the big challenges is the sedentary nature. I always say moving enough. I always tell my clients, hey, exercise is great. You're burning calories through exercise and we want to build muscle because more muscle equals, a body that's more efficiently burning fat. So if you put on muscle, if you get stronger, you're going to burn fat more and, your body's more efficient. And also you're just going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to just be stronger. But the calories that we burn through exercise are actually a very small portion of the calories that you actually burn throughout your day. Most of the calories that you're burning throughout your day are being burned through everyday activities. And so that's why I was talking earlier about, hey, you need to move. Like, even if you feel tired, even if you're getting home and you're fatigued, your body needs movement because if you're never moving, you're training yourself to be in that state all the time, but you're also not going to be burning enough calories. If your goal is to lose weight, you need to just move. It's not just go to the gym, do cardio, do that too. But you actually need to pay attention to how much you're moving throughout the day. Because I've had clients where they're hitting their workouts, they're hitting their macros, they're hitting their nutrition, they're getting their steps, and they're doing everything right. And like we see it on paper and like everything looks great. But then maybe their weight starts to stall. And one thing that I always make sure I do is I have to ask them, what are you doing on your free time? And if they're like, well, I like to watch TV for like 4 hours. I like to lay around for like 4 hours. And then I actually have had several calls with my clients where I actually hour to hour, we break it down. And then we realize, dude, you're scrolling for like 4 hours. You're watching TV for like 3 hours every day. This is what you're doing with your time. And that's another thing that pilots also need to take into account. Cause I always hear pilots say, oh, I just don't have the time. And then I ask them, okay, how many days are you working a month? 14. Okay, what's going on the off days? And they're like, oh, well, I have family and I have this and I have that. And then it's all these excuses that we create for ourselves. Yep. But the thing about somebody that makes excuses is that you become good at making excuses. And then that excuse, sometimes maybe it is a legitimate excuse. Like, I had this emergency come up. Okay, that's understandable. But then the more and more that you make excuses, again, you're training yourself to make excuses, and you become good at making excuses. And then the next thing that you know, you're making excuses for the littlest things. Like, oh, I stubbed my toe the other day, so I just decided I didn't want to go to the gym. It's like, okay, you could have done some bicep curls. You could have done something. And so we have to learn how to become resourceful instead of finding excuses, finding reasons as to why we can't. Because even saying, I can't do this, I don't have the time, you're saying it out loud. And when you say something out loud, you hear yourself say that. In a way, you're hypnotizing yourself to believe that. You're creating those beliefs by saying that. So when people say, I'm lazy, I always tell people, nobody's born lazy. People train themselves to be lazy. Laziness is a skill. It's a very easy skill to develop because all you have to do is do nothing. But if you do nothing for long enough and you think I'm lazy, you say I'm lazy, and you validate that through your daily actions, you become a lazy person. And if you do that for years, well, then, yeah, you're going to be lazy. And then if you gain weight on top of that, it becomes easier for you to be lazy. If you eat junk food, that food is fueling your brain. So that's going to make it easier for you to procrastinate. That's going to make it easier for you to make excuses. That's going to make it easier for you to be lazy. And so these are all things that I help my clients understand. It's like, it's not just go to the gym. It's not just do cardio. It's no, how are you thinking about everything? How are you approaching life in general? Because that really is where transformation comes from. Transformation is not, ooh, I got some abs because I went to the gym. No, it's like you got those abs because you completely changed the way that you operate in your daily life, and you became a new person. That old you has to die for that new version of you to actually be born.
Wow. Laziness is a skill. I like that. It's like anything else, man. You do it long enough, you're going to get pretty good at it, right?
And it's easy. It's so easy to be lazy, especially in the world that we live in today, man. Because you could sit on the couch for a month. People will bring the food to your door.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go in.
Yeah, DoorDash. Yeah, that was probably one of the worst things that could happen to pilot, or really anyone, not just pilots. Was having that. Wow. Man, this is really good. What are some misconceptions that people often have in your experience about pilots when it comes to pilots and fitness?
Some misconceptions?
Yeah. If you can think of it, if there are any that you've come across. Like maybe do they think most pilots are, fit? Or, is that a common misconception that the majority of pilots are fit?
I think you could walk in an airport and you could quickly make your own judgments about the pilots that you see walking around.
Yeah.
Which is, that's one of the reasons I decided I wanted to target pilots, is because it's true. You go to the airport and you kind of notice not a lot of the pilots are fit. There are guys that take care of themselves. And I think, again, I think that's a mental thing as well, because I think pilots tell themselves that they can't get fit, or that it's too late for them, or that, school's more important and studying is more important, which it is important. It's very important. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of dedication, but so should your body, because it's your body that allows you to do that in the first place. And so I think, are you referring to kind of like the general public of like what they think about pilots?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's a hard question. I don't think I've heard from like a lot of the general public of like maybe like misconceptions that they have about pilots.
I didn't know if there was any way to relate it to fitness. So I'll give you like an example. A common misconception is that, all pilots are good at math, right?
Oh,
or that you have to be good at math to be a pilot. Like that is not necessarily true. I didn't know if we could equate that in some way to, the fitness.
Well, I think it takes a certain type of person to become a pilot. And I think I think pilots love structure. They love routines. They love checklists. They love so sometimes it baffles me that they love all that stuff. But then when it comes to taking care of themselves, they're like, whatever.
That's a really good one. Yeah. That is kind of funny how that's like that contradiction there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always tell them, hey, you guys have all the skills necessary. It's just taking that and applying it into our everyday life. Now, I can understand how if you're at work and you're turned on all the time and you get home and you're just like, I just want to turn off. I just want to chill. Then I understand, like, you can't just be turned on all the time with like, okay, everything has to be like this, like this, like this. But again, like there's a balance. There's a balance that has to be found, because there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix. There's nothing wrong with relaxing and enjoying yourself. But that should be leisure time. That shouldn't be your lifestyle. Going to the bar with your coworkers shouldn't be a nightly occurrence. Like, that shouldn't be something that you're doing every single day. Because again, like, that's how you become an alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly.
Pilots love to drink.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, that leads to a whole bunch of other issues.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some, without, giving too much of your program away here, but what are some key components of an effective fitness program for pilots?
So we build out a training plan. So obviously you want to be in the gym, you want to work out. It all depends on what the pilot's goal is. I have guys that are skinny and they actually want to build muscle. They want to gain strength. And then I have guys that most guys usually want to lose weight. Most people want to lose fat typically. So the training plan is obviously going to be based on that. And so with that, again, we'll have a training plan based on what you have available. If you have a gym membership, then it's like, okay, let's build a plan out for when you're in the gym, for when you're in the hotel, for when you're at home, when you have no equipment available. I think that's key, is having a plan already ready for you. Because sometimes pilots get to the hotel, they go in the gym and they're like, oh, what am I going to do today? I guess I'll work this muscle group. I guess I'll work that muscle group. There's no structure in place. That's good. I guess you get some movement in, at least you're showing up. But if there's no structure, if you don't know what you're working that day, if you're not keeping track of like what you're lifting, if you're not tracking your progress or anything, then you're not going to make progress, because you don't even know, but if you go in the gym and you already know, okay, I'm going to do these 5 exercises, I'm going to do this many sets, and this is what I'm going to do. It takes this decision fatigue out of it, because that's a real thing. Like, you having to think of what to do is taking energy out of you, especially if you don't even know how to do it, how to structure it, what to even train. So actually having that already laid out for you is huge for my clients, is because they don't even have to think about what it's like. Me, when I was trying to build my business, it was a bunch of guesswork. It was like, let me try this. Okay, let me try that. And nothing was really leading to the end result that I wanted. But when I have a coach and he's like, okay, forget all that on Google. Here's your structure. Here's your plan. Here's your step-by-step process. We're going to get you from point A to point B. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to get you to this point by this date. And then once we get there, we can work towards that next. And then we're going to get you to that end point. And everything's laid out for you. And you don't have to think about it, because the path's already laid out. Why figure out which path to take when a coach is like, hey, that path takes you there? I know, because I've taken that path. You see all my clients, they've taken that path. That path's taking you where you want to go. And then you're like, well, I guess that path is the right path. And then if you take the right path and you go on the right plan and you do the right things, you start to realize, oh, this is working. I'm starting to lose weight. I have more energy. You understand that you're on the right path. And that's motivation. But that's the real motivation that most people want before even taking the right path. Most people want to rely on motivation. They want to wake up one day and finally feel motivated enough to actually do it. That's what happens on New Year's. New year, new me. This is finally the year. I'm finally going to get in shape. February comes around, they've fallen off. But motivation is not reliable. Motivation comes and goes. And if it's there, take advantage of it. But it's when it's not there that you're really reprogramming the way that you operate, because if you show up anyway, you become a disciplined person. With discipline comes consistency. With consistency comes real results. And those real results are what leads to actual long-lasting motivation. And even then, you're still going to feel like not doing it some days. But you show up anyway, because, again, like, you've rewired the way that you operate. Mm-hmm. Kind of went on a tangent there. But again, like, you got your training plan, and then we have nutrition, where I don't give my clients diets. We don't tell our clients, hey, don't eat this, don't eat that. No, diets work. It's not that they don't, but I think they create an unhealthy relationship with food, because they put you in this very restrictive mindset of, okay, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. If I eat that, I have to punish myself. And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And people usually get to a breaking point, because they're like, I want my cake, I want my pizza, and then everything kind of goes downhill. So I don't tell my clients, don't eat the burger, don't eat the pizza, don't drink the beer. Obviously, it's not what you want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? But if we take away the restrictions and instead we educate you guys, which is what we do for our clients, is we educate you on what kind of foods you should be leaning towards, how you should be eating most of the time. When you have to eat out, this is how you should do it. When you have to snack, when you snack, this is how you snack properly. So when you have that education and you understand how to navigate nutrition in a better way, what ends up happening is my clients start making better choices. So when you make better choices, you eat better. You actually realize, oh, when I eat better, I feel better. Surprise. And then when they realize that and they begin to create those associations with the food that they choose, then it becomes a lot easier to make good choices and it becomes a lot harder to make bad choices because the burger no longer becomes just temporary mouth pleasure. Now that burger becomes, how am I going to feel later? How am I going to feel for my workout tomorrow? How am I going to feel after? And so when you have those associations with food, again, it becomes a lot easier to actually navigate it. And it's not that you can't have the burger. It's not that you can't have the pizza, but it's understanding when it's appropriate to indulge. And also, again, like creating that healthier relationship with food. So we give you the tools. We'll give you a meal plan. We'll give you recipe book. We'll give you eat out guide. We'll give you all the tools, but it really is just about creating a healthier relationship with food and understanding what works for you, what doesn't, because some clients hate protein shakes. Okay, don't drink protein shakes. Here, do this instead. Like drink these, do these, eat this, like get your protein in another way. I'm not a huge fan of protein shakes. So I'll drink like protein yogurt drinks. I'll get my protein from other sources. But again, when you learn how to do that, you don't have to follow a diet. You don't have to be on keto. You don't have to do these things that are super restricted. It's more about, again, understanding how to navigate nutrition and still be able to get those results. So again, training, nutrition, and then access to our community. So we have a community full of pilots and everyone's, working towards being their best selves. That's super helpful for our clients just because people are always kind of like sharing what works for them. We're always making sure that we're celebrating everybody. So it kind of creates that community aspect of it, of a bunch of like-minded individuals. It's a bunch of pilots. So everybody's kind of like on the same journey. And we'll have like competitions within our clients, which if you're the competitive type, that can make it a little bit more motivating because you see yourself on the leaderboard. And then if you're at the top of the leaderboard, we always make sure that we reward our top competitors at the end of the month. So it adds some gamification aspect of it, right? Yeah. Like we have a community, we have challenges, people are, trying to beat their PRs and, making sure that they're shooting to, again, it just makes it a little bit more fun. So we have that community aspect in the program as well. And then obviously the biggest thing is a coach. So you're getting actual coaching from me and my team. So we're meeting with our clients. We're making sure we're checking in on them every single week. You basically have 24/7 access to us, which is one of the real benefits to having like virtual coaching. Cause I've coached people in person before. And that's some of the things that sometimes people say, oh, I think I'd do better in person. I think in person is great and in person is beneficial. Like I said, I've coached people in person and it's great to have somebody there next to you. They can push you to get that last rep in and they can show you proper form. But I noticed that my online clients get like 10x more results because we're not just focused on proper form. We're focused on creating a new lifestyle, creating a new identity, creating a completely new version of them through everything that they're doing. So their daily habits, their steps, their water, their sleep, we're tracking every single metric. And I have an app that we have our own custom app where we're able to see everything. So it's not just we're talking about it. No, it's like you have a visual representation of your entire journey in front of you. And so when you have that access to that, you can see, oh, last week I slacked on my steps. So I wonder what was going on that day. Or last week I didn't sleep as well. Or last week I missed a workout. You're saying that, but also us as coaches is saying that. And I think that's one of the biggest things is having the accountability, having somebody there guiding you through the process. This is something that I learned personally through my own journey with building my business is when I had a coach, when I had accountability, when I had an expert next to me actually guiding me through the process, that's when I got real results. And I actually I went like 6 months trying to figure out what I was going to do. I had nothing. And then within 3 months, I started to get my first clients because I had a structure, because I had a roadmap, because I knew exactly what I was supposed to do And I couldn't figure it out on my own. We can always figure things out on our own, but time is the most valuable resource that we have. So why do we want to waste this time trying to figure things out on our own when things have already been figured out? And so that's the benefit of having an actual coach, having an expert by your side. Is it's not about figuring things out, it's about taking action. And I know that you know what to do. Most people do. Everybody knows what to do. But are you actually doing it? Or are you saying, I'll do it tomorrow? And how many days have you said, I'll do it tomorrow? To where that's become the habit. The habit hasn't become, I went to the gym and I did the thing. The habit is, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then what does that become? That becomes your identity. And then that's super psychologically damaging, because when you procrastinate for long enough, you identify, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you'll identify yourself with being a procrastinator. And so now that just becomes who you are. You're just the person that says, I'll do it tomorrow, and they never do. You're not the person that says, I'll do it tomorrow, and you actually do it.
Right. So going back to the accountability piece, because you said you don't necessarily give your clients diets. So does the accountability just sort of come from the way that they feel? Like, okay, if they have that burger or they have that pizza, is the accountability piece like, okay, I felt like crap during my workout? Or are you like actually meeting with them virtually and saying, okay, hey, what'd you have for breakfast yesterday? What'd you have for lunch?
Yeah, we have our clients track all their nutrition. So we're tracking macros, we're tracking protein, carbs, and fats. And so they're entering all their foods into, I don't know if you're familiar with MyFitnessPal.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that actually links to our app. So whenever they enter anything in, we see everything that they're eating. So whenever we meet, we do go over the nutrition, and then we can see everything that they ate. And then that's where we can start to, give advice, or like see where maybe some changes need to be made, or like what things we could start incorporating. So that's where the nutritional accountability comes into play. And then some people like the more strict approach. They do want to be told what to eat. So that's one thing that we can provide for them as well, is actually, okay, here's your meals exactly. Here's your grocery list. Here's exactly what you're going to eat.
Yeah.
I find my clients do a lot better with just more so like general templates, and just knowing, okay, how much protein they need to get in, how many calories they need to eat. But everyone's different. So sometimes if they want, tell me exactly what to eat, then we provide that for them as well.
Okay. So it can be as tailored as they want it to be.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's great, man. Let's see here. So we kind of talked about strength, mobility, flexibility. So I kind of want to get a little bit more into like the mental and cognitive fitness and how that plays a part, or how that's affected rather by what the services that you provide. So have you found or, seen studies or data on physical fitness impacting pilots' mental performance and reaction time and things like that?
So I would say a healthy body equals a healthy mind. They're directly connected. Our minds and our bodies are not separate things. They're a unit. They work together. So the more that you take care of your body, obviously, the more that you're going to take care of your mind. And then as far as like studies, honestly, I haven't looked into like a whole bunch of studies per se, but I can definitely tell you that, if you work out more, if you move more, if you're just, taking care of your body a lot more, then you are going to think better. Like that's just a natural byproduct of taking care of your body. And also, when it comes to like mental health, like depression and all that stuff, that's all stuff that is touchy subject, especially when it comes to the FAA. They don't want you talking to a therapist or anything like that, which I think is messed up, because I think that's a super important aspect of just being a human, is having feelings, having, like having a mental health. But I think there's so many things that you can do to make sure that you take care of your mind, because sometimes maybe you do have a chemical imbalance, and that is why you're depressed, and that is why you have something going on. But sometimes it's really just, when was the last time you went outside? When was the last, what are you spending your time to do? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Like, what are you eating? Are you drinking water? Or are you just expecting to go to the doctor and they prescribe you some pill that's going to solve the problem when it's really just masking the effect? And then when you get off the pill, it's even 10 times worse. And then, or maybe you have to take another pill to take that pill. And then that's one of the sad things I would say in the United States is that I think, doctors are kind of in a way trained to just write a prescription and then send you off instead of being like, how are you eating? Are you taking care of your body? They're not necessarily trained in the nutrition, fitness aspect of things. I think modern medicine is a beautiful thing, but I think when there's profits involved, when there's pharmaceuticals involved, it can get a little squirrely because it no longer becomes about actually healing the person and actually having these help people healthy. It becomes, how can we get the most money out of these people? And so I think that's one of the sad parts of the States, because that's not just something that's happening in the hospitals and the pharma. That's something that as a whole, we're being programmed to believe that's how you solve the problem, is you just go to the doctor. Because it's so sad. I've had pilots where I'm like asking them questions about, how are you taking care of yourself? Are you going to the gym? And they're just like, oh, I have 9 doctors. I'm okay. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you have 9 doctors? Like, they say I'm okay, so I'm okay. And it's like, okay, are you okay, or are you just surviving? Because there's a difference between living life, enjoying this beautiful experience, and just surviving. And a lot of people are just surviving, and that's sad. And that's one of the things that comes with fitness. It's not just physical body. It's not just looking better. It's like thinking better, thinking clearer, like you said, like reaction time is, you don't want to have a heart attack in the cockpit, which I'm pretty sure there's a couple stories out there where that's happened. Right. And so yeah, I mean, that's what I would say to that.
This is great. So, when we spoke the other day, to kind of set this whole thing up, we had a conversation on the phone, and it just got me thinking about how I told you about a lady that I interviewed last season. Shout out to Shannon Torres, if you see this, but she's kind of offering coaching, but where you're offering a lot of your coaching from the physical fitness aspect. Mm-hmm. She's a mental health coach, specifically for pilots, and it just got me thinking, like, she really talked about that, the stress management, right, and the mindfulness, and sounds like you incorporate a lot of that into your coaching as well, which I wasn't quite aware of the depth of that, man, but I just want to take a second to acknowledge how awesome that is, because that's kind of what my vision in a way for this platform. My mantra, if you will, for Positive Rate Aviation is leading others to climb to their full potential through the lens of aviation. So you mentioned it earlier, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, everything, encompassed, in one. And, people, we say it, but I don't think we actually take the time to stop and think about what that really means, as far as taking care of yourself in every aspect. So I'm happy that I'm able to have Shannon come on and talk, and have people like yourself, man, and bring that to the forefront, and how it just all kind of comes together, into one, because how you do anything is how you do everything. Right. And, we all go through ruts, man. And, not to go too far off on a tangent, but, you got me fired up right now because, naturally we're all human. So we highs and lows, and there's times where I have a lot more energy than others. But what I can tell you, and anyone that's listening, is I've never left the gym and regretted it. We might not feel like going, I'm tired, I'm just not feeling it today. But I would venture to say 99.9% of the time after a workout's complete, I'm like, dang, I'm glad I did that. I'm never like, crap, why did I go to the gym? That's never happened, and I kind of use that to fuel that motivation that we talked about earlier, which we know comes and goes, right?
Yep. Exactly. And the more that you do that, the easier it becomes to actually show up.
Right.
Because even at the highest levels, you're not going to feel like it every day. Every day doesn't have to be a PR day where you push. Just showing up alone is already making a difference. And also, you don't have to live in the gym. I think that's a misconception that people also have that don't really are into fitness or anything like that, is like, oh, well, now I have to go to the gym 6 days a week. I have to spend 3-4 hours in there. I have to do cardio. No. You don't have to
go for a walk.
Yeah, it's like you could start small. You could start with like 1 or 2 workouts a week. Just start focusing on like maybe getting more steps and then work your way up. Most of my clients don't even do more than 4 workouts a week, like, and some of my shredded people 4 times a week, they're just working out, so it's just showing up really is what matters. You're going to get so much more out of showing up 4 times or 3 times a week for a long period of time than going like super balls to the wall for like 2 weeks and then you fall off.
Right.
Because that's what sometimes happens with people is they follow this super hardcore program, which is like awesome at the beginning, but it's not sustainable. And so they just fall off. And it just doesn't lead to the results.
Yeah. Do you address or deal with any or try to mitigate any long-term health risks like spinal compression? We talked a lot about pilots being seated, right? Do you have workouts or exercises or stretches that are, specifically geared towards, preventing that and dealing with circulation problems?
Yeah, I've had clients who been in plane crashes or like have had injuries. And so we kind of have to tailor stuff specifically for them. It's like, I'm a big proponent of yoga. I think yoga is great. Whatever you think about yoga, it's really good for the body because I know most pilots are males. It's a very male-dominated industry, and sometimes yoga is associated with like, oh, this is what girls do. Yeah, girls love doing yoga, but yoga is actually really good for the body, and honestly, a great way to meet girls. If you're in the dating scene.
Right.
But yoga, stretching, all that is great for the back. And then also lifting and resistance training is also great for the back because when you strengthen those muscles, that's again, like I was talking about earlier, like you sitting and not moving your body and letting your muscles atrophy is what leads to the back pain in the first place. So working those muscles and strengthening them is going to allow your body to be supported better and actually feel better. And then losing the weight is also plays a big role in that because if you think about 30, 40 pounds of excess fat, have you ever carried a 40, 50-pound dumbbell? Now imagine carrying that through life,
right,
everywhere that you go. How are you going to feel? Like crap. That's why people feel like crap.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about some industry insight. So I know you mentioned you've worked with pilots of all types. So have you worked with have you done any work with, any companies or any military, like aviation units specifically?
No military work. There's a flight school, nearby. The name is, I want to shout them out, but I can't remember the name. This is so embarrassing. If you go on my website, you'll definitely see them. I go in there and I've talked to a bunch of pilots there and stuff. So my goal is essentially to get to that point though, to actually be able to partner with the airlines and partner with flight schools or whatever, where they bring all their pilots to us and we're able to help them all get in shape, more from a corporate point of view. Because I think on that scale, we're going to be serving at such a higher level to whereas right now, pilots come to me, I reach out to pilots and we find individuals. But my goal for the company, my vision for the company is eventually to get to that point where the airlines know who we are, the airline, and it's hopefully someday we're able to partner with a big company where, we have our team get all their pilots in shape. And then who knows, maybe a fit for flight gym at the airports at some point. That would be really cool.
Yeah. So
there's an underground gym at the Vegas airport.
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, one of my clients sent me a picture, and then even some of the guys in the group were like, "What? That exists? There's an underground gym at the Vegas airport."
Wow.
So if you're ever there, yeah, I think it's a secret thing that not a lot of people know about, but there's a gym down there, which is pretty cool.
It's like a gym version of a speakeasy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. So kind of on that thing with wanting to go corporate eventually, have you seen anything in the industry of pilot, specific fitness programs?
Other people doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
We we've seen a couple coaches pop up here and there, where it looks like they're targeting pilots. I still feel like nobody's really doing it the way that we're doing it. As far as like health and wellness programs that like companies maybe provide for their employees, I do know some companies do that. I don't think it's as specialized as like what we do. I think it's more so like, hey, you get discounts at certain gyms, or maybe like you get personal training sessions a certain number of times a month, stuff like that. I know companies definitely provide that. But as far as like what we're doing specifically, I don't feel like anybody's doing it at the scale that we're doing it and then the way that we're doing it. So I feel like we are one of a kind in that sense.
Yeah, y'all are you're a trailblazer, man.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Just exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So when someone goes to your website, Fit for Flight Coaching, and they're like, hey, these are my goals. This is kind of what I want to do, whether that be, gain muscle, lose weight, or whatever. How do you and your team, but mostly you leading the charge, determine when you take a client on versus someone on your team? Like, is it if they request you like, hey, I want Juan specifically, or how, like, do you kind of look at it like, okay, I think, this person would be more suited for this client. This person would be suited. Like, how does you mind talking to me about that? How do y'all determine that?
I actually work with all my clients.
Okay.
Yeah, so I see all my clients, and then I do have my assistant coach who's checking in with them every single week. So I'm personally not the one checking with them every single week, but I am meeting with them, and I'm making sure that they get to talk to me. And then my assistant coach is making sure that he's checking in with them every single week.
Okay, good.
And as far as like who we take on, somebody has to be committed. Somebody has to know that that change needs to happen. And so that's definitely one of the things that we look for. Is just, we're not really just taking on anybody. Like, we really do want somebody who's going to take it seriously, because that's the people that are going to get results. So we're looking for action takers. We're looking for people that are committed to their goals. And we have the guidance, we have the paths, we have the systems, we have the structure and everything that you need. But if the commitment's not there, nothing's really going to change. Like, a coach can show you how to do the push-ups. We can't do the push-ups for you.
Right. Yeah, that goes back to that accountability piece you talked about.
Yes, 100%.
So can you share like a success story from like dealing with a previous client where, your coaching made a major difference, like in a pilot's, career, or really just their life in general?
Yeah. Well, we have a ton of transformations. I think maybe one that comes to mind is probably like my client Joshua, because he's actually been with us for like, I want to say like 3.5 years now. Like, he's been working with us for a long time now. And he's a perfect example of like being able to do it regardless of the circumstances, because throughout the whole 3.5 years that he's been with us, so first like 6 months, first year or so, we were able to get him down to like, he lost like 40, 50 pounds of fat. And then we started focusing on more muscle building. And so we kind of put him on like a like cutting and bulking type of regimen. And so throughout the whole time that we've been working together, he's gotten to a point where he's, a completely different person. Like, he has the six pack, and but the reason I say he's a perfect example of being able to do it regardless of the circumstances is because he's gone through like 3 different airlines while he's been with us. He worked for Atlas, and he was overseas, and he was working that schedule, and he was with JetBlue, and he was working a different schedule, and he's now at United, and he has a completely different life now. And throughout that whole time, obviously, he had to go through training several different times, and he never fell off. Like, he always just stuck with it. And this is somebody that was, again, 40, 50 pounds overweight, wasn't taking care of themselves, never really been in the gym, never really done much. But with the right systems, we were able to put that in place for him. And he just developed that discipline over time. It's not something that just happens overnight. Our program is set up in a way where it's not just like, okay, we're going to help you lose a couple pounds and then you're off on your own. No, it's more so like, it's called, we call it also the Fit for Flight Fitness Academy. Academy in the sense that, okay, let's go through freshman year, let's go through sophomore year, let's make sure that we get you ready to graduate and ready to go off on your own and actually take things And I would say Joshua would probably be good on his own, but I think the reason he stuck around for so long is probably because he really enjoys the community and he enjoys the fact that he has somebody checking in on him. Because sometimes it's not about knowing what to do, or it's about having the accountability and having somebody to report to. Because when you have somebody to report to, and then on top of that, you're paying for it, because the financial, it's not just, okay, I'm paying for some services. Is no, you're investing into yourself, and then people psychologically is like, okay, I need to get my money's worth. So they're more likely to take action. And then we work with all our clients long term. I don't do no subscription service. I take that back. We do kind of a subscription service where it's like, okay, if you kind of want to start things off and you kind of want to get a feel for the program, but our prime offer is a long-term package. Because when you tell yourself, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm really going to take this seriously, that's what's going to lead to your transformations. You actually committing and going through with it and sticking with it for that long. And then also, again, having the structure, having accountability, having somebody making sure that they're, on your butt when you need it. But that's how we serve our clients for sure. So I would say Josh is a great example. He comes to mind. He's been one of our star clients for a while now. And again, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
But we've had pilots of all walks, man. I have pilots that have 4 or 5 kids and they're still making it happen. They're still, it's not. Sometimes people use that as an excuse. Oh, well, I have the kids and the wife and I have to, and it's like, dude, like if you want to be the best man for your wife and for your kids, you need to take care of yourself. Like your kids are absorbing everything that you're doing. If they see you sitting on the couch around all the time, if they see you procrastinate, if they hear you say, I'm going to do that and you never do it, what do you think that's programming your kids to do? Like that's setting your kids up for failure, Like I'm sure you've seen like overweight families, like everybody in the family is the same. Like everybody's kind of following the same kind of lifestyle. So I think that's also key. But again, like we have pilots of all sorts. Everybody's able to do it as long as they're committed and they're in it to win it.
Yeah.
The results are there. It's not rocket science. It's just consistency. It's discipline, and it's making sure that again, like you stick with it for long.
Yeah. And shout out to Josh because he had every opportunity to make excuses and he didn't. He didn't make excuses. He just made things happen. But that's also a testament to your program and what you offer. And like you said, you're really about trying to help people change their lives. And that's evident with short stories like what you just shared with Josh.
Yes.
So I got one last thing on the business before we kind of shift gears and get ready to kind of land this thing here. But so what's one surprising or memorable experience you've had? What's something that's really surprised you through your work with pilots, if you can think of one?
One thing that surprised me about working with pilots, I would say how alike a lot of pilots are. Like I said, like it takes a certain type of person to become a pilot. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned. And also that you guys are just, you guys aren't like, I don't know if it's like I guess going back to the misconception thing, like I guess sometimes people think like because somebody's in a uniform, like they're this super like strict like type of person, when in reality pilots are just like jokesters who enjoy just airplanes, and then a lot of them are airplane nerds. We're at Oshkosh and there's a whole bunch of that there. And so I think I think that maybe I had that misconception in the way of like, just because somebody's in uniform, it doesn't mean they're like a super uniformed type of person when it comes to their life. It just means, that's their position. That's what they do. But I think pilots are super fun. I think they're super funny. I think you guys love to curse and drink alcohol, and you guys are fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Common misconception is that all pilots are like Tom Cruise and they're all like bagging chicks from the yoga class, or like what we talked about.
Right. Yeah. That's something that pilots have all these different girlfriends in different cities. And, cheating on their significant others.
Yeah.
All the time.
I'm editing this part out just so you know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, a lot of you guys are scared of heights.
Dude. So that's real. And I've talked about that on here before.
Which is crazy.
Because people like, they don't, and I really don't know how to explain it, man. I think maybe it's just a control thing. I don't know. I don't really think about it while I'm flying, but I mean, if I'm on a second or third story balcony, like I'm weak in the knees, man. It's
It's interesting.
yeah, it's crazy. I know it's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, man. And I want to go back to something you kind of mentioned earlier, specifically with your professional breakdancing. I want to kind of talk about you like as a breakdancer. So are you doing gigs currently? Is like on the side?
Yeah, I do competitions. I'll do shows. I used to perform a lot more back when I lived in Charlotte, just because I had the group where like they would set up gigs and they would set up shows, and we had like an organization that I was a part of. Here in Miami, there's a group of breakers here. There's definitely a community. I wouldn't say I've been as heavy in it here. I do train like 6 times a week, just because that's what I love to do, and I love to break, and I love to compete, and I love to. It's just, there's just, that's my passion. And so I definitely love that aspect of it. But yeah, I do all sorts of things with it when it comes to whether, and it's just a cool party trick.
Yeah.
Whenever you're somewhere and the music comes on, you can kind of just,
Wow. So you're actually, no kidding, battling.
Tension. Yeah, that's what a competition, that's how we compete.
Okay.
Is like, I'm sure you've seen movies where,
like you got served.
Yeah. That's actually the movie that got me into breaking. I watched that movie and I was like, yo, I want to be able to do that. Which is cool in the movies, but I feel like it's so much better in real life, because in the movies you're like, okay, the good guys are going to win. But in real life, you're like, who's going to win?
Yeah.
It really, like, the hype is there. And also like the buildup of just like watching the bracket of like the two best competitors there come face to face in the final. It's a really dope art. I love hip hop.
Yeah, definitely, man. And just the sport of hip hop and the different avenues within it. And like you talked about earlier, man, the competitive aspect,
Yes.
And I think friendly, healthy competition is good, man, because it forces us to look at ourselves in the mirror and be the best version, like we talked about, right?
So, yeah, and it's all love at the end, And on the battleground, you might think, do these people have beef? But then you get out at the end, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think as men in general, I think we have that in us of that like that competitive aspect. When we're able to bring that out of ourselves, I think we're better versions of us, because that's who we are. That's what humans are. Humans are competitive. Like we, some in the more like broad sense, what are men doing? They're fighting for land. They're fighting for this. They want to conquer. They want to take over. And so that's in our DNA, like our competitive. Luckily, we live in a world now where we don't have to go out and fight for our food and and do that and live. I'm here in the States, fortunately, but yeah, it's in us. It's in us, especially as men.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned Oshkosh earlier. And I've seen some of the clips online on your page, man. It's pretty dope. I see you like interviewing people. Was that your first trip, or had you been there before?
We went there last year.
Okay.
Last year was our debut. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So people knew who you were when you got there this year.
Yeah, people knew me last year because just from online and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of people were I definitely am getting recognized a lot more, in the airports. When I like to interview pilots, it's one of the things that we do. It seems like people really enjoy that on Instagram. And so whenever I'm at the airports, I just go up to pilots and I'm like, and so there's a lot of times where I'll go up and they'll be like, hey, I know who you are. And then it's like, okay, dope. And it's like, so it's cool that the name's getting out there, but also, it seems like my face is also getting out there and people kind of like recognize the brand and recognize the company now, which is it's the goal. It's to be a household name in the aviation industry. Yeah.
At what point? And this kind of leads me to a question that I had for later on, but I'll ask you now. At what point did you kind of have like a I made it moment, or have you had an I made it moment? With this business.
I think when I was doing it full time, when I was able to just pay my bills with it, when I was able to just do my own thing, when I moved to Miami, for sure, because that's the business is what allowed that. In next week, actually, I'm moving into my dream apartment, and I'm really excited for that. It's a apartment on the 52nd floor. I have the view of the bay, the city, and it's those moments that, while that's nice and all, I think seeing the impact that I'm making is what leads to these wins. And those wins in essentially help me work on myself even further, because when I'm there, I'm in a state of abundance. And abundance is not just, okay, I have all these material things. Abundance is like, what can I give to more people? How can I serve more people? How can I give more? And because when you come from a place of giving, you attract everything into your life. And so I think I'm a big proponent of practicing gratitude and being grateful for what you have and being grateful for where you are, never forgetting where you came from, and giving, because we're social beings. And I think love is the answer, as hippie as that sounds, but I think we're everything always comes back to love. And when you come from that place, when it comes from the heart, everything comes, everything kind of falls into play. When you're doing it for the money and when you're doing it for that, then things don't really work out. And I have that personal experience with that too, because when I started my business, it was about, how can I just make more money? How can I just, and when it was about that, I wasn't really my business wasn't really taking off. But when that shifted and it became more about, how can I serve this person to the highest potential? How can I change this person's life? How can I really give this person my full undivided attention and energy that's going to shift the way that they live and look at themselves? And how can I make them more confident? How can I do that? Then it's like, okay, then I start attracting the people. Then I start attracting the clients, and I start attracting the life that I want for myself. And with the life that I want for myself, it leads to me being able to show up for my clients even 100% more. Again, it's like with the parent thing. Like when you show up for yourself, you show up for your family 100%.
Humble servant. That's what's up, bro. That's really dope.
Appreciate you, man.
So anything on the horizon for the company, man? Fit for Flight Academy? Anything you can kind of speak to that people can be on the lookout for soon?
I think right now we're just continuing to grow the company. And then I've been talking to a few companies here and there. I reach out to a few companies and see, like, maybe at some point, if we do kind of like are able to find some sort of corporate opportunity, if anybody watching this is interested in speaking about that, that's the direction that I would love to take the company. And so that's just something that we're just kind of exploring, but that's a completely different avenue, because that's going to require different kind of systems in place and all that. So right now it's really just about continuing to grow the company, continuing to change lives, and continuing to spread the message, and continue to raise the health standard in the aviation industry.
Absolutely. Wow. Mm-hmm. Which in the long term, man, really is you're contributing to public safety. Let's just call it what it is, right? So you put in the most physically, mentally, and spiritually fit pilots up in the flight deck,
yes, sir.
Carrying our nation's public around. So that's awesome, dude. Cool, man. Well, before I get you up out of here, we'll just close out with a little segment. I just kind of something fun I just do with all my guests.
Okay.
All the pilots seem to appreciate this, but it's called Clear for the Option. It's kind of just a rapid fire, if you will, just something that we do just to give people a chance to just know a little bit about you, but nothing crazy, just some softball questions.
Okay, cool.
I just throw something out there and you just say the first thing that comes to mind. All right. So with that being said, you're clear for the option, man. What's your favorite airport?
Favorite airport? Hawaii.
Hawaii. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool one.
Yeah.
I just like how it's kind of like indoor and outdoor at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would say that's probably one of my favorites I've been to.
Yeah. That's a good one. It's the first time I've heard that. That's actually a really
good
one. Yeah, okay. That's a good one. What's your biggest, who or what is your biggest influence?
Biggest influence, I would say probably my mentor, Michael Chu. I've worked with him for like 3-4 years now, and he's changed my life. He's the one that I would say I would attribute a lot of my success. Yes, to the hard work that I've put in, everything that I've done, but also to the vision that he's helped me create and the path that he's put me on. Because he's a really powerful just leader in the way that he runs his own organization, but also just the amount of value that he brings to us, his clients. And I have my own group of, a bunch of coaches also running their own businesses, and we're like a brotherhood. And that's a beautiful community that's come from that. And so I'd say Michael Chu.
What's the favorite flight you've ever taken?
Favorite flight? I guess I'd have to say Hawaii again. Because I feel like flying I guess it can be a little monotonous. You know, you're just sitting in the plane, you're just waiting to get there. But I think the excitement of going to Hawaii, because when I went to Hawaii, that was one of those first moments where I, I feel like that I made it. I feel like it's hard to say because I feel like you never really make it. I think life is just ever changing. Like you always, maybe you get to a certain point, but that was one of the first times where I was able to just kind of like take a vacation and just pay for it entirely and just do my own thing and just go out. And I went out there for a month, which was kind of cool to just be able to do that and just still work from out there and continue doing what I'm doing. So it was a beautiful trip. And so I think the excitement of going there was really cool.
And you were still able to do what you do from there, man, which means which means that you're in control of your time, which is what true wealth actually is. And I say that almost every episode is doing what you want with who you want for as long as you want. Man, yes. I know that's supposed to be rapid fire. I didn't mean to hijack your rapid fire.
No, you're good, man.
That was yeah, man. What's your favorite exercise?
Favorite exercise is tough. I love chest day for sure. I like bench, but I feel like I like flat press better, like where it's handles and you throw the plates on.
Yeah,
like I prefer that. But bench is cool too.
Yeah, is that on Monday?
Yes.
International Chest Day.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see here. All right, don't mess this one up. Your favorite podcast?
This one obviously is Positive Aviations. I like Joe Rogan. I listen to some Joe Rogan. I enjoy Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And then I like the fun. I don't know. Kill Tony's a funny one. I like
Kill. Yep.
That one's hilarious. I love Kill Tony.
Nice. When you are in the gym, who's your like go-to? Like, what are you listening to? Like music wise, if you're listening to music in the gym, like who are you listening to?
I have a couple different. Obviously, hip hop being a b-boy. I wouldn't say like one specific artist. I think like just hip hop in general. But sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit more like I need something a little bit more hype, I like some like rock, some some heavier stuff that can put you in the mood to hit some PRs.
Okay, nice, nice. All right, man. And last but certainly not least, man, last thing I got for you, dude, is what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone that's interested in pursuing a career in coaching or physical training?
So I would say it's whether it's coaching or anything, if it's something entrepreneurial or if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, I think it's one of the most beautiful things that you can embark on in life, because it's almost like your career, your job becomes yourself, because it becomes a self-development journey. And so the more that you're able to develop yourself and the more that you improve the skills that you have and the more that you're able to improve yourself, the better that your business is going to operate and the more value that you're going to bring. And so if you are embarking on that journey, understand that it's not just about having some sales skills. It's not just about knowing the proper structures and the proper systems. It's about knowing yourself at the deepest level and being able to find your most authentic self and living that version, not just knowing it, not just saying that this is what I want, but actually living and embodying it and bringing it into your life, into your clients, and having that energy to give. And it's one of the most beautiful journeys that you can take on life, is just starting your own business, because it's not just, okay, I have my own income. No, it's like I'm getting paid to work on myself. I'm getting paid to become the best version of me. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, because again, and it's a roller coaster. Yeah. It's a very hard journey. It has its ups and its downs, but I think just as low as the lows can be, so can the highs. The highs are the highest highs. And I think that's life, though. Life is always going to throw curveballs at you. But if you set your life up to be the most fulfilling version of life that you want, then it's all worth it in the end.
Man. Perfectly said, man. Man, that's That was awesome. That's what's up,
I
man.
appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, definitely. So with that being said, yeah, man, you're cleared to land. We gave you the option. Now you cleared to land, man. Wow.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you dropped some serious jewels on us, man, and I learned a lot. This was I knew it was gonna be dope, man, but this was honestly even better than what I expected, man. So
thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So much gratitude, man. I love what you're doing, and yeah, I look forward to cheering on your success, man, from this point
Appreciate
forward.
you, brother. Yeah, and if you guys want to find us, Fit for Flight Coaching on all socials, fitforflight.com, Fit for Flight Coaching everywhere, or fitforflightcoaching.com.
Fitforflightcoaching.com, and then Instagram is at Fit for Flight Coaching. Yep.
All socials, Fit for Flight Coaching, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook.
That's what's up, man. There it is, man. That's the man of the hour, Juan Gama, Fit for Flight Coaching. This has been great, man. Thank you again, and look forward to getting this one out.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah.